In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
Welcome to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that teaches you how to be the very best dog owner your dog could ever wish for. And on that, we are talking tummy troubles. And that was
Tom's
not
bottom.
planned.
And
so what we're talking about is your dog's tummy is upset. What do you do about it? Is there anything to do? Is there any way that you can help them out? And it's a common problem.
It is a common problem. And the thing is, actually, there's a lot you can do. And there's also a point where you do need to maybe get some extra help.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that we maybe run through exactly what you can do at home and what you maybe can observe, but also when it maybe needs some more attention. And I think it's important, like Tom says, this is a common problem. This is something that most dogs will go through multiple times throughout their life at some point. And actually, there's a lot you can do about it, both to prevent it. And also, if you do have an episode, then actually there's lots of things you can do to make your life and your dog's life a lot easier.
Absolutely. And so first things first, should you care if your dog doesn't quite have a solid stool? Well, the answer is yes, you should. Because first of all, a happy stool indicates a happy gut. And the thing about a happy gut is that a happy stool, a happy gut equals a happy brain, which in turn impacts their behavior. And we could talk all day about that. But the reality is that the stool output that your dog is giving you is a really good indication of overall general wellness. It's a really good indication of gut wellness. And actually, there's massive links between the gut and the brain and subsequent behavior. So really, it is something that you want to do something about. It's something that you want to help your dog out with. And as you've probably noticed, sometimes the stool can be impacted by your dog's behavior. Your dog could be really excited or really worried about something, or have had a really exciting walk, and all of a sudden they get kind of a loose stool as a result of that.
And I think the thing that probably is indicated here as well, or something that we both do, we notice, right? And I think that as much as I think some people might think we're crazy. Actually noticing what your dog does and what comes out of them is important as a general day-to-day dog owner to observe. No, you don't need to become obsessed. No, you don't need to become paranoid. No, you don't need to go out with a fine-tooth comb. But actually, just having a general day-to-day awareness of it, I think is quite useful. Neither Tom nor I think, are completely paranoid about this, but neither are we completely oblivious of it either. So I think having a general understanding of it is quite useful.
Absolutely. And if you want kind of more information about how the gut and the brain influence each other and how this can be impacting your dog's behavior, if you head over to a-ok9.com and head to the knowledge base, there's a really cool quiz that you can do as well on there, and the knowledge base will have blogs on actually what is going on and what's the science behind what we're talking about. Now, your dog could have a kind of a loose stool, a bit of a dodgy tummy for a number of different reasons. It could be impacted by their arousal level, as we've talked about. It could be that they've got something else going on.
I'm going to give an example, Tom. I've just come back from a major event, and actually one of the dogs that we travelled with had never been before. And actually on the first day, they had a slightly upset tummy. Now that's completely unusual for them. And so what I would say is that's the sort of thing that I would notice. We're at a huge event, sort of thousands and thousands of people, thousands of dogs. You could rush to the conclusion that actually your dog had picked something up, but actually it happened within about I don't know, 4 or 5 hours of being there. Actually, for me, this was quite indicative of arousal has kicked in here.
Yeah.
We're a little excited.
Yeah.
We're a little stretched. Actually, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to take in. Maybe this is my sort of awareness here of what I can do to safeguard their bucket, and also whether I can support it in any way. I think this is something to acknowledge, actually, where's it come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Next reason why you might have is what us vets call dietary indiscretion, where your dog's eaten something outside of their normal diet. That might be something that we've given them or something that they've found that is causing them to have a bit of a loose stool.
A very similar occasion, being away, always being away brings you new challenges. Blink managed to steal a good couple of kilos of food through the bars of her crate. She's in a crate in the vehicle. The crate in the middle of the vehicle had food in it. She decided that she would pull all of that food into her crate and keep it. And that was quite a lot of food. And so for her, it wasn't even that she ate something different. She just ate way too much.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, again, you're going to get an impact on the stool potentially. Now, the third reason is, this is kind of a big kind of lumping lots of different things together, is that your dog could have some kind of gut struggle that you want to discuss with your vet, right? You know, there are things that are a result of arousal, or things that are a result of a bit of, dietary indiscretion. But then there are also some conditions that can cause your dog to have loose stools, and you're going to want to work with a team, as a team with your vet, in order to work on those, because there's so much that can be done to be made better. And I know a lot of you are thinking, when you hear the word vet, you immediately think kind of invasive procedures. The reality is that when it comes to gut struggles, that really isn't the case, and it's not something to be ignored. It's something that you can work on, and in turn it'll probably help your dog's behavior as well.
And like Tom said, it really is something you don't ignore. You acknowledge these things. That doesn't mean you need to stress over it. It doesn't need to mean you panic over it, or you get worried about it. Actually, just acknowledge it, I think, is the start, right, Tom?
Absolutely. Now, next thing that we want to talk to you about in this episode is actually how you can best assess your dog as to how this is affecting them. And the first thing is overall energy levels. If your dog's kind of looking lethargic, looking tired, sleeping more, then that would be an indication maybe they need some extra support from the vet.
And the interesting thing is here, you really will notice this. If they're like lethargic, for me, that's the biggest thing to notice.
Yeah. Next up is, are they looking uncomfortable? Are they looking a little bit hunched? Are they finding it difficult to find a comfortable position? That might suggest that they've got abdominal pain, tummy pain, and in turn, again, that might be an indication that we need some extra help. Third, and this is just a good kind of dog owning thing to do anyway, is to actually have a little put your thumb against their gums and feel, are the gums nice and moist? Are the gums wet, or are they a little bit sticky? Like it's almost like your thumb kind of gets stuck to them a little bit when you press on them. Are they completely dry? This is a really good indication of whether the hydration status of your dog. And so if your dog has a loose stool and it's really loose, then they're losing water, losing fluid in that stool, and therefore if they're not able to compensate for that, if it's kind of at a level where they can't drink enough to be able to compensate for that, then you'll often find that their gums might be sticky or tacky when you put your thumb on them. Again, that would be an indication as to whether we need to go to the vet or not.
And you can generally see that as well. When you can see they look that way.
Yeah.
It's just something that looks off. Right? Yeah. It looks off.
Absolutely, yeah. They look dry.
And if your dog isn't overly comfortable with you handling their gums, I was working with a vet yesterday who was insistent that she was going to look in this dog's mouth, and this dog was insistent that she was not going to look in this dog's mouth. And I just kind of said, like you can see it's not right? Like we don't need to. It was a client's dog, and rather than force the situation, actually, it was better to actually you could assess it really from just looking at the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're the kind of ways that you might measure or consider, or that will help you to make decisions on your dog. Now, then what you really want to do is think about how we can stop this cycle, because the challenge is if your dog has a loose stool, that represents an unhappy stool, and in turn the gut isn't happy. Now the problem is that by the nature of having a loose stool, your dog having a bit of diarrhea, actually that will inflame the gut further, and you can find that this persists long after the the initial high arousal that was causing your dog to go that way. And so you want to rescue that stool. You want to you need to do something to make that stool look better, which in turn isn't just going to make it look better and easier to pick up, but also what it's going to do is help that gut to actually heal and calm down. So the key is that we need to rescue that stool. We need to take that stool from unhappy to happy, because that is going to allow that gastrointestinal tract to heal. And that's exactly what we do. We give our dogs something that helps to firm up that stool, that's full of binders, that's full of kind of toxin trapping supplements, that's full of probiotics, so that effectively we're saying, hey, stool, heal. Hey, gastrointestinal tract, heal. Let's rescue you. And that's why we developed Rescue K9.
Now, the cool thing about Rescue K9, for a small breed would have up to half a packet, a medium breed, one of these sachets, and you actually get a pouch of the sachets, which is really, really cool when you're maybe having a situation like this. For my dogs, this has definitely saved me when I'm out and about on the road, when I'm traveling, when I'm maybe in a situation where it's less than ideal, and it's like a first sort of call that I can do immediately and feel like I've done that, and there's nothing that's in there that's bad, right, Tom? There's nothing that could harm. That if anything, it's only ever going to be able to soothe.
Absolutely. And there's an energy source for those gastrointestinal cells within each sachet of Rescue K9 that really helps to support that process that the gut has to go through every time your dog has a loose stool. So the key is that if we can make the picture look better at the other end, then actually that is in turn helping the insides as well.
It's indicative of what's happening inside. What is coming out is indicative of what's going on inside. So I can tell you now, when Blink ate way too much food only a couple of weeks ago, what was coming out was not so pretty, did not sound great. And you know what? This really did sort her out in just a couple of sachets. Now, importantly, I think, is that actually these are things you can take with you. It is portable. It is something that's easily stored. I would just add it to their daily food. If they're on kibble, I would scatter it on the kibble. If they are on raw, I just mixed it in with Blink's food. If you want to add maybe a bit of water to your meal, then you can do, just to make it more palatable for them. The key is getting something like that into them fairly quickly.
Absolutely. And that's really the kind of fast support. That's the, immediate, let's rescue this stool.
And it's an immediate, I suppose, response to a bad stool as well. So this is like an episode. You've had an episode of this. This is not like a day-to-day thing. This is not something that when I buy a pouch of sachets of these, it's not something I need to give them daily. This is something that I use in an episode.
Exactly. And then what we've got to consider is how frequently is your dog having these episodes of loose stools, because some dogs, they're going to have a more sensitive gut than others, whether it's sensitive to their arousal levels, whether it's sensitive to maybe what is in their diet and what they're being fed, or even down to quantity of food. Some dogs, if you feed them too much, then you notice it at the other end that their gut is like, nope, I cannot cope with that. And so this is where you might want to think about a daily supplement as well. And it's amazing what you can actually achieve through a daily supplement. And take Probio K9 as an example, the one that we developed, this formulation that we developed through AOK9. And what that does is effectively provides daily probiotics to support that gut wellness, which in turn helps the stool, which in turn helps the brain and behavior as well, which is really cool. And it has those, daily binders to keep the picture looking good.
So especially for those maybe very sensitive dogs, or dogs that are maybe a little bit prone to this, gut well-being, stool quality, and actually anal gland condition as well, all being supported through the daily use of a good probiotic. No different to you or I taking a probiotic. Right,
exactly.
Tom?
And for those of you with dogs with anal gland struggles, and you're having to go to the vet on a very regular basis to have their anal glands expressed, and see that's not really helping their behavior and how they feel about the vet.
Or their relationship potentially with the whole experience, you as well.
We developed Probio K9 with that in mind, because there is actually evidence to to show that, fecal bulk can help with anal gland wellness, but also probiotics, interestingly, can really help dogs with chronic anal gland struggles where they're having to be repeatedly expressed. So if you've got a dog where you're looking to really support their gut, to support them overall, but also support their anal glands and their stools and everything else, then Probio K9 would be a really good consideration for that day-to-day support. Now, in addition to, the supplements, another part of day-to-day support that can be really valuable is getting your dog used to having their abdomen, their tummy handled and massaged, because there's a small amount of fluid within the abdominal cavity that is meant to be nicely distributed across all the organs so that they can all glide across one another, and everything's meant to be, really kind of like smooth and really there should be no areas of dryness and inflammation within that abdomen. Actually, massage can really help, especially when your dog's having one of these struggles, and as long as they've got no discomfort in that area, actually just massaging them there can really, really help support that process.
Another area that's worth doing on a day-to-day basis rather than actually wait for a problem is my dogs do get used to eating little bits of supplement in their bowl or on their calm mat or whatever we might do. And as much as we say ditch the bowl, absolutely, in a situation like this, I've got no problem giving them a little part of their dinner mixed in with something, very small amount, just so they've rehearsed the process of doing it. You might, like I do with Blink, mix it up and put it in a Kong or a bone, or you might mix it up and put it on their calm mat, or you might mix it up and have it in a bowl just to get them to take it. However you might do it, I think it's a good rehearsal to just take a small sort of morsel of food with something mixed in, like the Probio or something like Calm K9, something that's good for your dog, so they know the rehearsal of doing that. I found that very easy to get my dogs to take something, whereas years ago I had very, very fussy sort of eaters because I'd overindulged to a degree some of that, and I think also I had dogs who were much more finicky. My late dog Poppy, much more finicky about what she would take, and she'd suss everything out. But I do believe that's a whole way of training, because I don't have a dog like that now. So I believe it's the whole sort of training process that we do with absolute dogs. And
on the subject of ditch the bowl, it used to be thought, and there's still some incorrect information out there that if your dog has a bout of diarrhea or has a loose stool, that we should starve them for the day. We should not give them any food. Actually, increasingly, it's being understood that it's really important that you're feeding your dog to provide energy to those healing gastrointestinal cells. The point is, though, that we need to be really careful about not chucking a massive bowl of food in front of them,
and something that's really rich.
Yeah, and the gastrointestinal cells going, oh my God, we can't cope with that. There's some more diarrhea to deal with, and therefore they become injured more. Actually, very, very small, frequent meals where you've maybe got some rescue canine on there, that is going to be a great way of providing energy to those healing cells.
Right, Tom, and small amounts.
Exactly, and it means that you're not shocking the digestive tract with this massive, rich meal.
And I think the other thing that's worth acknowledging is actually if a dog gets used to rejecting food, they continue to reject more and more. So very small amounts that they don't reject, that they consume, and then hopefully they consume a bit more. Yeah,
absolutely. So we wanted to talk to you and teach you on this in this episode, because there's so much information out there that isn't accurate, isn't correct, and we want you to be aware of what you have control over and how you can support your dog, as well as when it is that you need to consult your vet and work as a team with your vet.
Last one very quickly, Tom, should you train a dog like this, with Tokyo and with Blink, I did carry on doing little bits. Blink I had to do a little bit less because she looked rather large. At Tokyo I had to be aware of what I was doing away from the environment, but I did things like scatter feeding. So he had some of his food with rescue canine rubbed all over it, scattered in the grass, and that was a bucket emptier, plus it was also the opportunity for him to do a little bit of like learning in a new environment. So I didn't overtrain him. No, I didn't train him high arousal thing. So I think it was all on a case by case basis. No, of course you would not be training a dog who's looking lethargic and needing hydration, but absolutely you might still be continuing to with Blink to sort of gently let her stretch herself out, or Tokyo and those of you. A friend of mine was really chuckling because Blink did probably consume almost her own body weight in kibble, it looked like. She really did expand. And you know what? Actually, it did upset her tummy, but I didn't mean I didn't do anything at all with her. I could still kind of mooch her around a little bit and do little bits with her.
Movement is important when you're having gastrointestinal struggles. In fact, part of digestion is movement. The movement of the whole body helps with digestion. I mean, in some species like horses, it's totally dependent on movement. Whereas in the dog and in humans, there's a contribution there. So the last thing you want to do is then contain your dog and not allow them to, because that's going to impact their digestive health even more. So there's lots of information out there. Now you've got the information that is the game changer information, the transformational information. You're the very best dog owner your dog could ever wish for. You're listening to this podcast, skilling yourself up, and whether you have a dog that has perfect stools all the time, not many of those exist, or whether you have a dog that has some real struggles, there are things that you can do, feel empowered, not disempowered.
Absolutely. Check those products out on the AOK9 website. They're there for you to have a look at.
And there's a great quiz over on a-ok9.com that you can do that will help you out with the ingredients that you should be, feeding your dog and considering. That was this episode of the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. We will see you next week. And remember, stay sexy! Hey, before you go, have you taken part in the worldwide Sexier Than a Squirrel Challenge?
It's a 25-day online video program, huge energy, amazing community, and over 6,000 people are already taking part.
The only question is, you know where you are today, where do you want to be 25 days from now? Head to absolutedogs.me/sexy.